Welcome to the Reddit Family Tallis YouTube channel, a place where genuine and inspiring family stories are shared. Here, you'll enjoy unique videos about family life, humorous moments, and meaningful lessons. Let's explore together the stories where love and connection shine through. Join us in creating beautiful memories. Please comment and let us know where you're watching from. Hit subscribe now so you won't miss the special video launching tomorrow. My family lied, stole my house, and kicked me out. The truth is unbelievable. From the moment I was born, I knew I wasn't supposed to be here. My parents, Patricia and Robert, were in their late 40s when they had me, and they never let me forget that I was an accident. My mother, in particular, had a habit of saying things like, "We already had Ashley, and she was more than enough," as if I was an unnecessary addition to the family. She never said it with outright cruelty, but her indifferent tone made it even worse. Ashley, my older sister, was 10 years ahead of me and the perfect daughter in their eyes. She was smart, outgoing, and ambitious. Or at least, that's what they always said. My parents made sure Ashley had every opportunity available to her: dance classes, music lessons, tutoring, private schools, you name it. I, on the other hand, was treated as an afterthought, shuffled off to my grandparents' house so my parents wouldn't have to deal with me. My grandparents, Walter and Evelyn, became my true family. While my parents saw me as an inconvenience, my grandparents saw me as a blessing. My grandfather, a retired math professor, spent hours teaching me about numbers and problem solving. "Numbers never lie, Madison," he'd say. "People do, but numbers? They always tell the truth." That lesson would shape my future in ways I never expected. My grandmother, a former high school teacher, made sure I excelled in school. She would sit with me at the kitchen table, helping me with homework while the smell of fresh baked bread filled the air. "Knowledge is the one thing no one can take away from you," she'd remind me. Unlike my parents, she truly believed in me. Despite their lack of interest in my life, my parents made sure to put on a show for Ashley. They attended all of her school events, from science fairs to debate tournaments. They bragged about her to family and friends. Ashley made the honor roll again, or Ashley got into her dream college. Meanwhile, they never once showed up for my recitals, my competitions, or my achievements. If I asked why, they'd just sigh and say, "You understand, don't you? We're just too busy." At home, Ashley ignored me completely. She wasn't cruel, but she treated me like I didn't exist. She had her own world, one filled with friends, parties, and plans for the future. I was just the forgotten little sister, sitting in the corner, watching as my parents adored the daughter they actually wanted. I spent most of my childhood hoping things would change, that one day my parents would finally see me, acknowledge me, or, dare I even dream, love me the way they loved Ashley. But when she left for college, instead of stepping into the role of the daughter they could finally appreciate, I became something else entirely: the unpaid housekeeper. At 14 years old, I came home from school one afternoon, backpack still slung over my shoulder, only to hear my mother's voice calling from the kitchen. "Madison, the bathrooms need cleaning." Start there. There was no hello, no "how was your day?" Just orders, as if I was a maid hired to keep their house in order. Ashley had always been the golden child, So naturally, when she left, her chores became mine. My responsibilities weren't just limited to cleaning the bathrooms. I was suddenly in charge of doing the laundry, vacuuming, dusting, washing dishes, and even cooking dinner. The shift wasn't gradual. One day, my mother simply decided she was done cooking, and that was that. "You're old enough now. We expect dinner ready when we get home from work," she announced one morning as she poured herself a cup of coffee, not even looking at me. I wanted to argue, to say something, but what was the point? Every time I protested, my father would chime in with, "You live here, don't you? You need to contribute." And if I hesitated even a second too long, they'd remind me, "Your sister always did her part." But Ashley had never done any of this. Ashley had a childhood. She had freedom, friends, choices. I had responsibilities and expectations, none of which were about my future, only about keeping the house in order for my parents. Despite everything, I refused to let them break me. I threw myself into my schoolwork, working late into the night after finishing my chores. My teachers noticed my talent for economics and mathematics and encouraged me to compete in academic competitions. But it was my grandfather who truly pushed me forward. "You have a gift with numbers," he'd say, his eyes shining with pride. "Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." And so, I dreamed of escape. Late at night, after washing the last dish and folding the last towel, I'd sit on my bed and browse university websites, picturing myself far away from that house, far away from the never-ending chores and their cold indifference. I had a plan. I was going to get out. For years, the only thing that kept me going was the thought of leaving. I worked harder than anyone in my class, pushing myself through late-night study sessions after hours of housework. I wasn't just trying to get into college, I was trying to escape. At 16, my efforts paid off. I received acceptance letters from some of the best universities in the country, including top-ranked finance programs. I could finally see a future beyond that house, beyond being just an afterthought to my parents. One evening, I sat at the dinner table, heart pounding, 3 envelopes spread in front of me. This was it. "Mom, Dad, I got into every school I applied to," I said, barely containing my excitement. My mother barely looked up from her plate. "That's nice, honey." I swallowed. "I need to start planning." She cut me off. "We can't pay for it." The words hit me like a slap. "What?" I whispered. "We spent all our savings on your sister's wedding," she said, as if it was nothing. "We even took out a loan for it." I felt my throat tighten. They had paid for Ashley's tuition, covered every expense, and now, there was nothing left for me. "But, you paid for Ashley's college," I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. My mother sighed and gave me a look I'll never forget. That was different. We saw potential in her. Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. My father didn't even meet my eyes as he added, "You should get a job, save up some money, and take out student loans. That's what responsible adults do." Tears burned in my eyes. I had done everything right. straight A's. Competitions. Hard work. I had earned this. And yet, it still wasn't enough. For the first time in my life, I didn't ask permission. I didn't beg for their approval. I simply stood up, grabbed my phone with trembling hands, and walked out the door. Minutes later, I was at my grandparents' house, sobbing as my grandmother wrapped me in a hug. My grandfather's face was unreadable as he listened, but when I finished, he shared a glance with my grandmother, one that told me they already knew this day was coming. Then, he took my hand and said something that changed my life. "Madison, we've been saving for your education since the day you were born." He disappeared into his study and returned with a folder, bank statements, savings records, a future they had built for me in secret. "You can go to any of those universities," he said. "We've got you covered." That night, I packed my things. I wasn't going back. My parents barely looked up from the TV when I told them I was leaving. My mother just shrugged. "Whatever you think is best." For the first time in my life, I felt free. Years passed, and I built the life I had always dreamed of. With my grandparents' support, I graduated from one of the best business schools in the country, earning a degree in financial analysis. My sharp instincts and relentless work ethic led me to a top-tier investment firm, and soon, I was managing high-stakes portfolios on Wall Street. By my mid-30s, I had everything I had worked for: a thriving career, financial security, and independence. Meanwhile, my sister Ashley wasn't as fortunate. Her marketing career never took off, and her husband struggled to hold a steady job. My parents, still blinded by favoritism, drained their retirement savings to support them. One night, during a rare phone call, my mother sighed heavily. "Madison, we're struggling. The house is too big, the bills are piling up, we're barely making it." For a moment, I almost felt bad for them. Almost. Then she added, "Ashley and the kids need a stable place to live." Ah. There it was. I spent weeks thinking about it. Despite everything, I wanted to help. Not for my parents, and certainly not for Ashley, but because of my grandparents' values, the ones they had instilled in me. So, I did something no one expected. I bought them a new home. A smaller, single-story house, perfect for their retirement. It had a beautiful yard, no stairs, and was easier to maintain. It was the fresh start they desperately needed. When I told them, they cried with happiness. My father hugged me for the first time in years, and my mother actually thanked me. For once, I thought maybe, just maybe, things would be different. I planned a special moment to surprise them with the deed at the housewarming party. But the invitation never came. Every time I asked, my mother had an excuse. "We're still planning, honey. These things take time." One evening, after another vague brush off, something didn't sit right. I searched Ashley's name on Facebook, and there it was. A public post from Ashley herself. "So excited for my parents' housewarming party this Saturday. Can't wait to celebrate this beautiful home with everyone." There were dozens of comments confirming attendance. Caterers had been hired. Decorations were being set up. They had planned everything for weeks. Everyone was invited, except me. The night of the housewarming party arrived, and I sat in my car a block away, watching as guests streamed into the home I had purchased for my parents. Laughter and music spilled onto the street. Through the windows, I saw my father giving tours, beaming with pride, while my mother, dressed in her finest pearls, welcomed guests as if this was her grand achievement. Inside, moving boxes with Ashley's handwriting were stacked in the corners. I knew exactly what was happening. My parents weren't just enjoying the home I bought for them, they were preparing to hand it over to Ashley and her family, without even telling me. I took a deep breath and walked toward the house. If they wanted to play dirty, I could, too. Slipping in through the side door, I moved toward the living room, where a large group was gathered. My father raised a glass, smiling. After all these years of hard work, we finally did it. We bought our dream home. Applause erupted. My mother beamed, adding, "And let's not forget Ashley. She helped so much with the down payment, always putting family first." That was it. I stepped forward. "Actually," I said, my voice slicing through the room, "I think you've got that backward." The room fell silent. My father's smile tightened. My mother's face lost all color. "Madison." "What a surprise," my dad said, his voice shaky. "Yeah, I would have been here sooner, but I never got an invite to the housewarming party for the house I bought." Ashley's husband, confused, muttered, "Wait, you bought it?" I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder with the property deed. "Yes, and unlike what my mother just told you, Ashley didn't contribute a dime. The house is in my name." Ashley's self-satisfied smirk vanished. My mother stammered, But it's ours now." "You can't expect eternal gratitude." My father found his voice, standing tall. "Frankly, you're not welcome here, Madison. This is a family gathering, and Ashley and her kids will be living here now. You need to accept that." I stared at them, realizing just how little I had ever meant to them. I took a deep breath. "You seem confused about something," I said, holding up the ownership documents. "This is still my house. I was planning to sign it over to you tonight, but clearly, that would be a mistake." My mother's voice turned shrill. "You can't do this. We're your parents." I exhaled, my voice calm but firm. "You're just the people who gave birth to me. My real parents, my grandparents, taught me that family is about love and respect, not entitlement and greed." Turning to the stunned guests, I announced, "I'm sorry, but this party is over. This is my property, and I'm asking everyone to leave." The room erupted in chaos. My parents, Ashley, and her husband scrambled to argue, but there was nothing they could say. One by one, guests awkwardly grabbed their things and filed out. I stood on the porch, watching them drive away into the night. A few weeks later, I found out they had moved into a tiny two-bedroom apartment, crammed together with Ashley's family. They tried calling, but I blocked their numbers. Their voicemails shifted between rage and guilt-tripping, but I never listened. Instead, I sold the house and used the money to build the life I deserved. Some asked if I'd ever forgive them. But I learned something important. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting people back into your life. Sometimes, it means walking away for good. What would you have done in Madison's place? Do you think she made the right decision, or should she have handled it differently? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever experienced family betrayal like this? Share your story. We're here to listen. What lesson do you take from this story? Let us know what you would have done in a situation like this. If this were you, would you have given your parents another chance? Or was this the only way to set things right? Tell us your opinion below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more shocking real-life stories. Your support keeps us going.